No empire in history has lasted forever. From the gold coins of ancient Rome to the dominance of the British pound, many currencies once ruled the global economy in their time. In the same way, the golden prize of modern America, the US dollar, has dominated the world economy for over 80 years. It holds the power to amplify wealth many times over, and just as easily, it can erode the value of money. This kind of financial influence isn't new. It's simply the latest chapter in a long history of economic power shifting from one empire to another. But what if China is preparing for an invisible revolution to turn their superpower into dust? Then how will that happen? The whole matter becomes more complicated when it is heard that China and Russia are joining hands to implement this project. So is it true that the monopoly of the dollar is going to end this time? So, how will it happen? How will China implement this project to eliminate the US dollar from the world economy? And the biggest question is, if there is no dollar, what will emerge as an alternative to the dollar in world politics? Digit in 1944, when the major countries of Europe were burning to ashes in the fires of World War II, representatives of 44 countries of the world met at a hotel called Bretton Woods in New Hampshire, America. Their purpose was to deal with a strange crisis. The real question then became, which currency would drive global trade once the war ended? The British pound had been severely weakened, and many other countries had nearly empty reserves. At that critical moment, the United States stepped in with a bold proposal arguing that while trust in other currencies had collapsed, it held vast gold reserves. So, countries were encouraged to peg their currencies to the dollar, with the assurance that the dollar itself would be backed by gold. This agreement led to the creation of the Bretton Woods system, and almost overnight, the dollar emerged as the world's most trusted currency for international trade. This new system gave the United States enormous influence over the global financial order. International trade, loans, and reserves increasingly revolved around the dollar, making it the backbone of the world economy. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank were also established to stabilize the system and support reconstruction. As more nations adopted the dollar standard, global confidence in the US economy grew stronger. Over time, this dominance allowed America to shape financial rules, control liquidity, and respond to crises in ways no other nation could match. Every country in the world started international trade and commerce through dollars. But the real game started about 28 years later. The year was 1971. America saw that they no longer had as much gold as dollars in the market. Then President Richard Nixon gave a huge deception to the world. He announced that from now on, gold would no longer be exchanged for dollars. When the whole world came to a standstill after hearing this, America immediately moved to Saudi Arabia. There, they made a secret agreement. According to the agreement, America would provide military security to Saudi Arabia, and in return, Saudi Arabia would sell all its oil only in dollars. This is how the petrodollar was born. As a result, any country in the world that needed oil had to obtain dollars from America before buying oil. In this way, America very cleverly made the whole world a slave to their currency. Since then, this system has been effective for decades. No one dared to protest, because the consequences of those who protested have been terrible. But recently, China has realized that if America has to be defeated in the battlefield, they will first have to destroy this dollar empire. As the saying goes, someone's prosperity is someone's ruin. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the Western world imposed the toughest economic sanctions in history on Russia. America froze hundreds of billions of dollars of Russian assets overnight and removed them from the SWIFT banking system. Immediately after this incident, the whole world realized that America could turn any country's money into pieces of paper in a second if it wanted to. China also realized that what happened to Russia today could happen to us tomorrow. So without further delay, China and Russia joined hands with each other. They decided that from now on they would no longer need dollars for trade between themselves. Instead, they chose to settle their trade entirely in their own currencies, the yuan and the ruble. But China didn't stop with its agreement with Russia. It launched a broader strategy known as currency swap lines. Through this system, China has signed agreements with more than 40 countries, allowing them to trade directly in yuan instead of relying on the dollar. As a result, countries like Iran, Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, and even Pakistan have become part of China's expanding yuan-based trade network, gradually reducing their dependence on the US dollar. Not only that, China has also made an agreement with America's oldest friend, Saudi Arabia. As I said earlier, Saudi Arabia has been selling oil only in dollars for years, as per the conditions given by America. But recently they have announced that they are willing to sell oil to China in yuan. Iran has been under American economic sanctions for decades. They have long been looking for an alternative to dollars in their oil trade. Currently, China is the largest buyer of Iranian oil. And this entire transaction is either in yuan or in exchange for goods. As a result, Iran is able to survive in the world market without the swift banking system provided by the US. In addition, an Abu Dhabi-based company has signed a contract with China to sell millions of tons of LNG gas. And again, not through dollars, but through yuan. On the other hand, Iraq also recently announced that it will use yuan directly for personal trade with China. Although large direct transactions are still done in dollars, the yuan has begun to enter there too. Also, despite its closeness to the US, a French energy company called Total Energies has completed a contract to sell LNG gas to China through the UN. These developments suggest that European nations are beginning to explore alternative arrangements. If the dollar continues to dominate the global oil market unchecked, the so-called golden era of the American economy may not last forever. But the bigger question is, why are so many countries suddenly turning toward China, and what do they gain from it? The answer is straightforward. The United States has increasingly used the dollar as a tool of political influence, and China has seized that opportunity. Beijing is positioning itself as a partner that offers trade without the threat of sanctions. However, the real shift may be yet to come. China is developing new financial technologies that could potentially reshape the entire global banking system. They have created a digital currency that is far more difficult for external powers to monitor or control. Let's take a closer look at the digital currency that has reportedly caught America's attention. When China realized that US influence over the global banking system, especially through the SWIFT network, had become overwhelmingly dominant, it introduced ECNY, also known as the digital yuan. This is not a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. Instead, it is a central bank digital currency, CBDC, issued and fully controlled by China's central bank. It represents not just a new method of payment, but a signal of a gradual shift in global economic power. What makes ECNY particularly significant is its potential to enable cross-border transactions without relying on traditional Western-controlled financial systems. This could reduce dependence on SWIFT and minimize exposure to sanctions. In addition, digital currencies like ECNY can make transactions faster, cheaper, and more transparent within participating networks. China is already testing its use in international trade and integrating it with its growing financial partnerships. If widely adopted, this system could challenge the dominance of the dollar in global settlements and open the door to a more multipolar financial world. Then the Spanish, then the Dutch and the British. And now we are probably standing at the very end of the American century or the American century. At the end of the day, this is not just a fight for money. It is a fight for power, which can give birth to a new world order. What do you think, viewers? Will our next generation have yuans instead of dollars in their pockets, or will America bring some new surprises to this fight? Don't forget to share your opinion in the comment box. I'm saying goodbye here like today. See you in the next video.